Our meeting will now come to order. I need a motion.
Madam Chair, I move that we return to open session and adopt certification of closed session.
Second.
It's been moved in second that we go in, return to open session and adopt certification of closed session. All in favor?
Aye.
Hearing no nays, we are now in open session and ready to adopt certification.
Certification of closed session. Whereas the Dinwiddie County School Board has convened a closed session on this date pursuant to an affirmative recorded vote and in accordance with the provisions of the Virginia Freedom of Information Act, and whereas paragraph 2.2-3712 of the Code of Virginia requires a certification by the school board that such closed meeting was conducted in conformity with Virginia law. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Dinwiddie County School Board hereby certifies that, to the best of each member's knowledge, only such business matters as were identified in the motion convening the closed meeting were heard, discussed, or considered by the school board. J. Sneff, District 1.
I certify.
Betty Haney, District 2.
I certify.
Barbara Pittman, District 3.
I certify.
Mary Benjamin, District 4.
I certify.
Sherlyn Merritt, District 5.
I certify.
And we have two non-voting student representatives, Jamaica Weaver, Claire Carbreath. Madam Chair, all certified.
Thank you. I ask you now to please join us in the reciting of the Pledge of Allegiance with Ms. Jamaica Weaver.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
You may be seated. Thank you, Jamaica. Madam Secretary, are there any amendments to the agenda?
Yeah.
Hearing no, there aren't any amendments, we need a motion to adopt.
Madam Chair, I move that we adopt the agenda.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded that we adopt the agenda as printed. All of those in favor, use the usual sign.
Aye.
Hearing no nays, the agenda is adopted. Closed session report, the personnel list.
Madam Chair, I move that we accept the personnel list as presented.
I second.
It has been moved and seconded that we accept the personnel list as presented. All those in favor, use the usual sign. Aye.
Aye.
Hearing no nays, the personnel list is approved. Recognitions.
Oh, that's me. Oh, that
Yes.
is me. Let me be Christy Clark. Give me a second. Excuse me.
Can-
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Benjamin, members of the board. I'm going to do my best to see if I can be Ms. Clark in her absence. So please, if I make a mistake, blame it on my head, not my heart, okay? As you know, the Virginia School Board Association does every year provide recognition to board members, and this evening I'm happy to provide that recognition to you. The Virginia School Board Association is providing a award of recognition. This award is being presented to Mr. Sneff for his commitment to effective school board governance through your participation in the Virginia School Board Academy for the 2019-2021 school year.
Thank you.
Yes. All right. Okay, this award is an award of achievement, and this award is presented to Betty Haney for her commitment and effective school board governance for participation also in the Virginia School Board Academy for the 2019-2021 school year. So congratulations to you, Ms. Haney. Thank you. Okay, also we have an award of honor, and this is presented to Barbara Pittman for her commitment to effective school board governance through her participation in the School Board Academy for the 2019-21 school year. Got a nice- All right. And this award is, the Award of Honor is presented to our school board chair, Mary Benjamin, for her commitment, also to the board governance for her participation in the 2019-21 school year. Congratulations, Ms. Benjamin. And then award of recognition for our Mrs. Sherilyn Merritt for her commitment also to the Virginia School Board Association and the School Board Academy through 2019-21 school year. Congratulations. I think one of the things that people, excuse me. I have one more. And this award of recognition is to our very own Bonnie Golson for her commitment to effective school board governance through her participation in the Virginia School Board Academy and for taking care of the superintendent for the 2019-21 school year. I think one thing that a lot of our folks from home probably don't realize is that, being the school board member, once you are elected, that's just the first part of this journey. Our school board members continue to learn, and they attend a number of workshops throughout the school year. And so these awards are reflective of your participation and your ongoing learning about what it takes to govern a school district. So thank you all for your commitment to Dinwiddie County Public Schools. We certainly wouldn't be going to great heights without your leadership. So thank you all so much.
Thank you. And Dr. Weston, stay right there.
Oh, gracious.
It's always good to recognize your leader.
Oh, my
And
gracious.
that's what I want to do this evening, is to recognize board and Dr. Weston. And this says Virginia School Boards Association Award of Excellence. This award is presented to Carrie Weston for your commitment to effective school board governance through your participation in the VSBA School Board Academy 2019-2021 for 2 whole years. Thank you so much for what you do for us. Thank you. Okay. Move right along to, thank you for, our awards. Consent agenda, expenditure reports.
Madam Chair, I move that we approve the expenditure report as presented.
Second.
It's been moved in second that we approve the expenditure reports as presented. All of those in favor, use the usual sign.
Aye.
It's been moved in second that the expenditure reports be approved. Now we'll go to the approval of minutes.
Madam Chair, I move that we approve the minutes from September the 14th to September the 28th.
Second.
It has been moved in second that we approve the minutes from September 14th and September the 28th, 2021. All of those in favor, use the usual sign.
Aye.
Hearing no nays, the minutes are approved. Matters, Dr. Weston?
Yes, Ms. Benjamin, I'm going to ask Ms. Hannon to come forward. I'm so happy to hear that we might actually get some field trips in this school year. And so she's going to provide an overview of what we can expect, or what we can hope for, I hope.
Pending transportation
transportation.
availability.
Field trips, yes.
Mr. Tucker is always yes.
That's right.
We did move one, which was the farm day, the third week of school, because we needed 15 buses. So Mr. Tucker did say he could make it happen. Ms. Hannah was the one that moved it to the spring.
Thank you,
so
Ms. Hannah.
I take credit for, well, I don't take credit.
No.
We had some unhappy teachers. However, they
Yeah.
are very happy that we have moved it to the spring. And I do think that gives us time to get our buses
Yeah.
coordinated. And we also have a farm day, mobile farm day. And I think I have the 8th on there. That has been moved to the 25th, but that is in the works for the 25th, the mobile farm day. And only 2 schools will have to move about. That would be Sunnyside. They will go down to DES. And Midway will go to Midway will go to Sutherland. So that means we only need 4 buses versus 14 or 15. So those are some of the highlights. We have the Red Barn Farm, we have Parish Farm, and then anything with an asterisk is over 50 miles, so we will need approval. We are asking our schools for flexibility with scheduling. We are asking them maybe not a Friday, maybe a Tuesday or Wednesday. And we're also asking them to make sure that when they schedule, that they can get back
Right.
their money if something should happen, if we should have to cancel. So we are working with our vendors for that flexibility and in writing.
Thank you.
Especially anything that we go outside and purchase, a contract with a bus.
Yeah.
So those are the things that we have outlined for this year. We do expect the virtual to grow, so we will continue to add the virtual resources to this list.
It's a great list.
Okay.
And I will say, we are having, I know our FFA was planning, well, they're still planning to go to the national, the competition, the national convention, yeah.
Yeah.
And the bus that they were going to travel on, which was a charter bus, they canceled because they don't have enough drivers. So we had to come up with a different plan for them. So it's happening everywhere.
Well, Madam Chair, I move that we approve the field trip information as presented, pending transportation availability.
Second.
It has been moved and second that we approve the elementary field trips pending transportation. All of those in favor, use the usual sign.
Aye.
Aye. Hearing no nays. Ms. Hannah, thank you.
Thank you. Speaking of FFA, I'd like Mr. Atkins to come forward and talk to us about a couple of competitions that are in the future for this group of students.
Hey, how are y'all?
Hello.
First trip is November 2nd. It's at Isle of Wight, which is over 50 miles away. The trip would not need a bus. It'll take a county car. 2 students and 1 advisor would go.
Okay, you need a
wanna
separate
approve these?
approval on them each, probably.
I can do both at the same time if you want me to. The second trip is November 17th. It'd be 1 student. Trip's in Buckingham, which is over 50 miles. So 1 student, 1 advisor. And they would also use a county car.
I have a question about the 1 student. Is that the student that wins from the previous trip, or this is just the 1 student that you identify at the school? Don't they they draft the tractor for, they use that for their competition? I think it's kind of interesting.
Maybe Jay would know that. Louis, you would know that.
They have to win the federation to go on to area.
Okay, so that would be
Yeah,
the
and
one.
then from there on,
Okay,
area goes to state.
okay,
And
thank
that's why
you.
there's only usually 1 or 2, and they all have different areas of expertise or different areas they compete in.
Thank you.
And I have a somewhat silly question. Are they driving their own tractor? Whose tractors are they driving?
They contract with dealerships in the area.
They rent them for that day?
There we go.
Nice job.
Yeah, I learned.
Always surround yourself.
Yeah.
Hmm. So you need a motion?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
Madam Chair, I move that we approve both FFA field trips. Second.
It has been moved and seconded that the FFA field trips be approved. All those in favor, use the usual sign. Aye. Hearing no nays,
Thank you.
trip is approved.
And
Next.
the next is the VPSA reimbursement resolution. Mr. Ampe, I believe, is going to come forward.
Yes.
Greetings, everyone.
Greetings.
I'm seeking approval of the VPS reimbursement resolution. And the VPSA is a grant that we have that allows us to get mostly Chromebooks, laptops, and switches and cabling, everything we need to keep our SOL testing going and keep us certified at all of our schools.
Mr. Amber, I think we did this last year.
Yeah, it's a yearly, it's an annual, it's an
Yes,
annual thing.
and this keeps us going.
Yes, yes, ma'am.
And we have if it break down, we have something to replace it with, and
Yes,
It's a
ma'am.
good program. I mean, this is worthy.
And, you know, of the
And-
$232,000 that we receive, we have to have a local match to that. then
And that's
they're
not a
also-
problem.
And that's, you know, and then they're also 25%,
For,
it has to be for teacher
Training.
training. So there
Okay.
are restrictions around the grant.
yes, ma'am.
Okay. Well, Madam Chair, I move that we approve the resolution.
Second.
It has been moved and second that we approve the reimbursement resolution BPSA 2122. All those in favor?
Aye.
Hearing no nays, the resolution is approved.
Thank you.
Thank you. Strategic plan approval? Dr.
Oh,
Weston?
yes, so, and I'm gonna stand in front of you all, if
Okay.
that's okay? And this time I'm gonna be myself. It's Ms. Clark. Is there? Oh, yes, that one. Thank you. We've been working on this strategic plan update for the past couple of years. As a matter of fact, prior to COVID, we were really on schedule to roll it out. We were going to roll it out a little bit earlier than now. However, we kind of had to put some things on hold, and it really obviously gave us time to step back for a moment to make sure that we did have the right goals in mind and the right strategies in place. And we were afforded us an opportunity to garner some feedback as well. You know, over the summer when we had our board advance, we spent some time taking a look at the 4 goals and some of the strategies in each area. So tonight I'm bringing forward to you what you're going to see. You see the draft, and we're going to finalize that after the communications department if one comes back. But on page 21 is where you can turn to, and that's what I'm going to refer to this evening. For your review, I'd like to talk to you about the goals and strategies that we have in place or that we are asking for your approval to move forward with this evening. As with anything, our vision here is that every student will graduate from us life ready and they have a path for lifelong success. I mean, that is ultimately what we're doing here every single day. And that our core values are always around excellence and equity and integrity. And we use those as driving factors as we continue to put this document together. The essential questions that we posed as we were formulating this document and as we talked about what kind of school division did we want to be and where were we going and what would that look like and what was it going to take for us to get there, these were the 4 questions that we posed even to our community to help give us some feedback relative to that. How can we reach, challenge, and prepare every student for success in school and life? Because it is important that they're successful with us, but it's even more important that they are successful when they leave us. I always say to the staff that it is what happens the day after graduation. That's what's most important to me. I want to make sure that everyone has a lot of choices and they have a plan for what's going to happen that next day. How can we make sure that we're creating caring, positive, and safe learning and working environments? How can we retain and recruit high-performing employees who put students first, practice inclusivity, and inherently add value to the school system? And then how can we champion the needs of the school community, but in the same time be more responsible stewards of the public's investment? So those were the 4 essential questions that we put forward and have been working on these past couple of years. And as we sought to answer the first question, how can we reach, challenge, and prepare students, every student for success in school and life, we came up with the first goal being that one of student success. And so when we talk about student success, we have defined that by each student will succeed academically, personally, and civically. And how we're going to really measure that is going to be that they can demonstrate age and grade level appropriate knowledge mastery. They will have a career plan with us. They will graduate on time. And they will either enter into the higher education and or the workforce and or the military. So we just want them to have either a career plan as they move forward or a college plan as they leave us. So our priorities in this particular area are 3. And they really do encompass a lot of different strategies. The first priority being that we're going to ensure that all students graduate from school high school ready. some of the strategies that we have in this particular area have to do making certain that all of our students are reading on grade level by the third grade. There's a lot of correlation around what happens prior to from pre-K up into third grade, and that really does set the foundation what happens to our young people later in life. So we know that we've got to do a lot of early investing to make certain that our young people have the necessary skills to be successful as they move through their school years. We also want to make certain that our young people have an actionable plan for pursuing their secondary goals and career options by grade 8. And I really do applaud Ms. Wolfick and her team, done a really great job for making certain that all of our students, and I do go in there and check to make sure they all have, academic and career plans in there. And they've done a really great job meeting students where they are, working with them and their families, and making certain that not only it's just about interest, but it really is taking interest, aptitude, all of the things necessary, and coming up with, here are some career paths that you might be interested in. And also making certain that we are, there's a lot of supports in place, that we're customizing learning, and that there's a lot of work around work-based learning experiences. And as you know, we just recently were recognized for that particular area from the Virginia School Board Association. The second priority has to do with expanding our offerings that further develop our social, emotional, physical, and cognitive competencies. So we do want to make sure that there's a multitude of supports in place for our students. And this probably is even more important right now as we've just come off of these past 18 months, because all students are at varying levels. And so we want to make certain that we have the necessary supports in place so that our young people can be successful. So as you know, we've got a lot of wraparound services in place. We've hired new social workers and psychologists, and we've got our counselors working on in different capacities now to make certain that everybody is available to students and can help them as needed. The third priority is about closing achievement, access, and opportunity opportunity gaps. What we want to make certain is that everyone has the same opportunity that attends Dinwiddie County Public Schools. And so things that we would be looking here is to make sure that we expand the alternative kinds of education opportunities. So we are offering virtual and in-person learning. We're looking at doing an audit of our course offerings to make certain that our advanced courses, our gifted programs, and our specialty schools are well represented by all populations of students, and everybody has access to that programming. And then we have a lot of work around family engagement, and we already have that in place for this coming school year. And then we are going to put together a cross-functional task force to develop a comprehensive equity plan based on qualitative and quantitative data, and that's really going to help us here. So some of the ways we're going to measure this first goal is going to be look at our on-time graduation rate, look at the type of diplomas, and we're going to hear about our graduation this evening as well, our industry certifications, the academic plan and career plan that I spoke of, our career readiness, SOL performance, and you see the rest of them there. So lots of different ways we're going to measure our success in this area. All right, so the second goal is around a caring culture and making certain that not only that our schools are caring and positive and safe, but our work environment is as well. So the first priority around caring culture is to make sure that everyone here, whether you work here or you're served here, that everyone feels respected. And so we have a lot of different strategies in that area. A lot of them have to do with communication and creating a 5-star Dinwiddie Difference customer service program, and lots of ways for us to have community conversations so parents can make sure that they let us know about what they need and how we can better serve them. The second priority is about facilitating a culturally responsive environment. And so we want to make certain that the culture that we have in our school system is communicating clear and high expectations for everyone, and that we are being very inclusive in our work, and making certain that communication is also a big priority in this area. I will say this goal has a lot to do around communication. Priority 3 is about making sure that all of our stakeholders have an opportunity to be engaged in the learning of students here. So lots of surveys going on, transition plans for kindergarten 6 and grade 9 students and EL students. And just lots of things about partnering with local county leaders and businesses and faith-based groups and holding listening sessions quarterly. And also we are going to be bringing back, I guess, years before I arrived, there used to be an education foundation here. So one of the things we're going to be bringing back is the education foundation. So we can bring our partners to the table to assist us in leading the school system. The fourth priority has to do with improving internal and external communication. And as I said, that this is one of the areas that, as we got the feedback from our community, is about, having a comprehensive communication plan. And it's not just about putting things out on social media. It really is about how can there be a two-way communication between the families and in our school system. And how can we make sure that's consistent from department to department, among schools and how can we establish some expectations for all of us? We will also be putting out a yearly report to the community. Our first one will go out this fall. And so Ms. Clark started that before she left, and she will be finishing that upon return. And we're also talking about different ways to get information into the hands of people in the community. And then finally, how to expand the use of technology and innovative strategies. And part of this has to do with the technology plan that Mr. Ampey and his team have worked on. That'll be part of this strategic plan. And looking at different ways to do our work and thinking about them very differently. I'll often say it's about trying to move us like in the 21st century, but really it's about how do we leave artifacts behind? Because long after, one day we won't be the people sitting at the table, so somebody needs to kind of come behind us and be able just to say, okay, this is what they were working on, this is what they were doing. So we are putting all the maintenance stuff into an app and getting that all automated. And we're going to be doing the same thing, and you'll hear about that later this evening with technology. So it's about how do we use technology to our good. All right, goal 3. Some of the measures are going to be about satisfaction survey results, discipline data and attendance, and how we're turning response times around with technology and maintenance, and all of our alternative program enrollments, safety audits, partnerships, and technology plan objectives. All right, goal 3 is how can we make sure that we retain and recruit high-performing employees. And so there are a couple of different, and so the goal is around exemplary staff. Priorities are 3. The first one is about improving the processes to maintain and attract talent. And I think that's really important that we use the word maintain before we talk about attracting talent. We have a lot of talent in this community, and we want to make certain that we take care of the people that are here and are dedicated to doing what they need to do for our young people in our school system, and we want to take care of them. One of the biggest things here is we're maintaining a focus on competitive compensation and benefits. And as you know, we're going through the comp study right now. So we will have more information for you as we get further into the school year. The next priority is about developing a highly effective and responsible workforce. And so a lot of this has to do with about building capacity both in our teachers, but also creating that internal pipeline of positions. I always say that we always should have like a second string ready to step in at any given moment. So we want to make sure, and in a rural school community, it can be really difficult because people have to wear lots and lots of different hats. But how can we create like a pipeline so that we always have somebody who can lean into the work at any given moment? We want to make certain that we are also continuing to support our provisionally licensed teachers, but we also want to support our teachers and our staff who want to continue their education as well. And so, and we're developing a process for how we're going to track licensure renewal and professional development training. I don't know if you know, but licensure now is a 10-year process, and so it used to be a lot to keep up with in 5 years. Can you imagine what you have to do to keep up with in 10 years? So how can we do that? And how can we make professional development not be like a once and done, but really about, this is what I want to get really good at, or this is my job and what part, everybody doesn't need to get better at the same things, right? So our professional development plan should be based on what individual needs are. Our third priority has to do with developing our principals and district administrators as effective leaders of people. One of the things in my experience has been that I think sometimes, I think for principals, we get so busy doing the job that sometimes we forget about our own development. And that's the same true with district administrators. There's some research out there now that talks about people that move to central office and about we sometimes forget that they need to equally be developed because we're the ones leading people, right? And that's at the end of the day, that's what's really important. So making certain that we're very intentional about that development of both our principals and our district administrators, because these are the folks that really do touch everybody in the school district. And then how we're going to measure that has to do with our competitiveness of our salaries. We're going to continue to look at employee turnover and our staff evaluations, our teacher demographics to make sure it's reflective of our student population, and then our student surveys, because who better to tell us whether or not we're doing a really good job, right? All right, and then finally, goal 4 is how do we go about championing the needs of the community, but also make sure we're being very responsible with the responsible stewards of the public's investment. And so one of the priorities in this area has to do with making certain that we have a decision-making model in place where it's not just a small group of people making all the decisions, but making certain that you bring unlike minds to the table to help with making decisions or have input on major decisions in the school district. Making certain that, if there's a decision going on, that you think about people who don't necessarily think like you and make sure they come to the table. And make sure that you put information out there so other people can provide input. And then also utilize the budget process to prioritize what we need versus what we want. And that's very important. The second priority has to do with the efficient use of resources, processes, and management structures to support innovation. We are really spending a lot of time, and we have been these past few years, looking at all of our processes and procedures in our departments and our schools and documenting all of these so that we can have a warehouse of information. I spoke to you before about, the people come behind us. I want there to be something that you leave behind that says, okay, this is where you pick up and go from here. Be very effective or efficient about how you're using or allocating existing resources. It's not here's all the 7 schools and everybody gets the same thing. It's really taking a hard look at what the needs of individual schools are and allocating resources based on what the need of the schools are. And then explore long-term options to reduce transportation costs. That's one of our more expensive costs. And as you know, transportation is not something that you have to offer, but it is a wonderful, thing to offer to families, but it is very costly for a school district that is as large as we are. And I believe it's only going to get worse as fuel costs continue to rise and the like. So try to cover 507 square miles. It's very challenging. The third priority is making certain that our facilities meet all of our industry requirements, including accessibility, low maintenance, efficiency, and they're globally connected. And I think this is probably one of the biggest parts of our work right now. We have aging facilities. And I think that, as I think about our facilities, it's like a blessing and a curse. The blessing is we have aging facilities, and I think there's something so special about facilities that have stories, right? And so these buildings have been here for a long period of time, and I love when people tell the story about I went to school there, and when I went to school there, it was this, and so people have a real connection to our buildings. What we have to focus on is maintaining these buildings in a way that preserves them for the next generation. And I think that's the piece that's missing, and that's the piece I think that we can have the community help us a little bit with, is figuring out how do we preserve these buildings so that they're there for the people that come behind us and the students that come behind us. Continue to study our enrollment projections and our programming needs. That's one of the things that we're being challenged with right now, that programming needs are changing. Because when the buildings were built lots of years ago, there weren't programs like special education and autistic programs and and all these all these encore classes that we provide and all of these electives that we provide. There weren't all of these things, but now we have to push this into a facility that wasn't really created for that. And how do you do that and maintain the integrity of the building and the programming? And then the last is to seek and establish other sources of external funding. And I think for me, we're not an organization that can generate revenue, so we have to really rely upon the federal and state government. And then for anything in between, other than that, we have to rely on our locality. And, and that has ultimately to do with us as taxpayers. And so all of these things that I talked about that are above and beyond would be things that we would have to go to the locality if it's not funded by the state. And as you know, the state funding is, it's not pure, so it's not like we have 350 teachers and they fund 350 teachers, right? We have 350 teachers and they might fund 270 of those teachers, but we need 350 teachers. So we've got to find a way to make all that happen. So, how can we be kind of innovative and how we can secure this funding? Right now, we're good because, we do have the funding for CARES and the like, but I worry about the time when all that money's gone, but we still have to maintain all of this, right? So where can we go to get this additional funding? Are there grants available and things of that nature? And so there's work in here that says, let's look to secure those kinds of things. And ways that we're going to measure that have to do with our capital improvement plans. We have a small capital improvement plan for anything that's under $150,000. We have a large capital improvement plan for anything, we have a small capital improvement plan for anything below $100,000. We have a large capital improvement plan which goes to the county for anything above $100,000, and that's a 10-year plan. And that seems to keep changing because we have things that we have to react to that we didn't plan for. Bless you. Our financial audits, we've done really well in that area, flawless. Our budget, our program evaluations, and our efficiency audits. So I just want to remind you the questions we're going to continue to ask ourselves. We did receive a great deal of feedback, so I'd like to talk to you about our leading forward as our next steps. I just want you to know that with your approval this evening, that this is a fluid living document, but it will drive our work for the next 5 years. Our principals are going to use these priorities to guide their continuous improvement and planning in their schools. And we have a workshop planned for later this month in which we're going to talk about their individual school data and then how these priorities fit into their work. You will receive an annual progress report. We're going to send the annual report to the entire community. Whether or not they're a school member or not, we're going to send that report out to everyone, and that'll go out every fall. But there'll also be an annual, we'll be bringing information to you. I met with Ms. Nguyen today. We talked about maybe quarterly bringing an update to you about where we are. And then we did receive community feedback both from internal and external, and we are using that on a continuous basis to reevaluate what strategies we might have to change or put in place based on we got a lot of great ideas, both from parents and families, as well as staff members. So I'm happy to entertain or answer any questions that you might have. I know that you are much more familiar with this because you've had the summer to take a look at this document, but I am asking for your approval so we can move forward and finalize it so we can print it and publish it, but also start to act on it.
I know one of the things that VSBA is working hard on is trying to lobby the state legislature to look at the SOQ position.
Yeah.
Because what they will pay for and what they have deemed as necessary percentage-wise hasn't been adjusted in years.
Mm-hmm.
And like you said, they allocate a principal and a half of an assistant principal, but what we need in that building is a principal and 2 assistant principals.
Right.
And so the needs of the local schools are much different than the SOQ document
Yes.
presents. So anybody that's involved with the political or doing any lobbying, that is a big issue that we need to keep on leaning on.
Yes. it is something that they're reviewing right now at the state level. I know the state board is spending some time looking at that, but I think, the further removed that you are from it, the
Yeah.
more you don't really understand it. Like, well, can't you make do with this many kindergarten teachers?
Yeah.
But obviously, they've not been a kindergarten room where there's 24 kids in there.
No.
So it's, and they only fund so many, but we really want to keep our class sizes at 20 instead of the 24 or whatever that they think that we can have in a classroom. And also, they don't fund all of our principals, which I think is interesting. They don't even think you need a principal at every school. So it's like a part principal at certain schools. So it's just the I don't know, understand, the thinking behind it. And, but I do think it's time for them to relook at it. And I was happy to see that they are starting to fund counselors differently, which is helpful for us. We had already been doing that work. And we had already put reading specialists in the buildings before they started funding those, because we understand the importance of those. So it'll be nice for them to start doing some more of that, especially those that touch kids on the front levels. I think that's very important.
Yeah, and right beside that is that issue of, is the building adaptable to what we're using
Yeah.
it for? And we moved our middle school to the high school, but that building was designed for high school. And it would work so much better if we could put those adaptations in there that
Yeah.
would allow for pods and teams. It's, it's not designed that way because that's not what was there when it was built. So-
Right.
But it's the right thing to do, but they didn't give us any money to do it.
No, they did not. We're part of the Small and Rules Community Coalition. So I've been doing a lot of reading lately about, because just to give them some ideas about what they can do. And there is funding that typically, I was reading an article over the weekend that is like, it's like literacy funding or literary funding. But what happens typically is that money gets put back into VRS, but it's a lot of money. So it could be money that could be kind of spread out to schools for use in upgrading or taking care of facilities, or to address some of these things without you having to lean on your locality. It's put VRS in a really great place, which is wonderful. But that might be a place where you could, we might be able to tap into it, or they could use part of that funding to help us at the local level. But right now, you have to really, it really comes down to what your community, or what your, whether it's your school board or your board of supervisors or your city council is willing to support. And that puts a lot, because there's a lot of competing priorities across the county.
Are there any other questions or anything?
No.
And we can always come back to this anytime, and we'll be bringing it back to you periodically throughout the 5 years, and keeping you abreast of how we're doing and anything that needs to be changed. The goals, I would imagine, will stay the same as the priorities that will change, and the strategies, because they will always evolve as kids' needs evolve and our community changes.
But I see this now as a plan to keep us going forward.
Right.
And as you say, if we need to change,
Yeah,
then we can go back, or we can change it right there and
Yes.
still go forward.
yes. It's a fluid document. Yes, ma'am.
Are there anything else for Dr. Weston? Then we'll entertain a motion.
Madam Chair, I move that we accept the strategic plan as it is, knowing that it's a living, moving document.
Second.
Okay, it is moved and second that we accept the strategic plan. All those in favor, use your sign. Aye. Hearing no nays, it's approved.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Weston. And thank you all. Thank you, board. And Dr. Weston, we're still with you, I
Yes,
think.
okay, yes, you are, and I'm going to ask Ms. Branch, our Director of Human Resources, and Mrs. Fleming, our Director of Finance, to come forward. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about where we are relative to staffing, and some incentives that we're going to be presenting to you this evening.
Good afternoon. So as a continuation of the conversation that Dr. Weston has already started regarding the strategic plan, we'd like to focus more so on goal 3 of the strategic plan, which is on exemplary staff. And this will most likely probably feel like a conversation between Christy and I, because we're going to tag team along this presentation and help fill in on the gaps to help paint an overall picture of how we have arrived at the place we are today regarding the recommendation for the staff incentives. So in the strategic plan that Dr. Weston referred to, she discussed some of our platforms, and our measures of success that we are primarily focusing on now are the regional salary competitiveness and the employee turnover. So just to give you a glimpse of where we're at right now, coming out of the 2020-2021 school year, if you look at turnover overall as a school division, we're at 11%. 7% of that is teacher turnover, and then the other 4% of that is classified employee turnover. But what is more alarming or concerning is when you just look at the teacher employee group, looking back to the turnover numbers that we had when I initially started here in 2018-2019, we had 26 teachers that exited the organization. Then the following year for school year 2020, it was 37 teachers exiting. And now at the end of 2020-2021, it's 42 teachers that have exited from Dinwiddie alone. So just, within Dinwiddie County Public Schools, we can already see a concerning trend in that we nearly doubled our numbers of teachers exiting our organization between school year 2019 and school year 2021. If we focus also more closely on positions that we filled between the end of last school year and this school year, we had about 16 positions that were filled, most of them due to the COVID pandemic, in which we did not fill them through the school year because of the uncertainty. And then there was also a small number of positions that were added to the budget. So just to, help give you perspective, there's close to 20 positions that we currently have now that we didn't have last school year. Considering the challenges we have with the teacher turnover, we also have the added challenges of attendance of staff as well as the substitute staffing. I did some research, and since September 7th, the beginning of this school year, 57% of our absences have been for personal or family illnesses across the school division. We've also experienced an uptick in teacher absences that have been attributed to them needing to be out as a result of their child being exposed to someone who tested positive for COVID-19 in the school division. So that is something that has become an unintended consequence that we did not anticipate in advance, that seems to be a concern that continues to be on our radar of concern. Our total absences per day are as low as 22, and we have experienced as much as a high of 92 absences, particularly on Fridays. So we range from anywhere from 61 to 81 absences, as much as that per day.
In a day.
Yeah, in a day.
In a day.
In a day. Mm-hmm. And so about over half of those, close to 60%, being for some type of illness. Okay. So when you take that into consideration, then you start to think about, okay, well, who do we have to substitute in these positions? So looking at that across the school division, our fill rate averages at about 67%, and those are for the positions that require a substitute. I have to give it to many of our school administrators who are here in the room with us this evening, because they have become very creative in finding ways to be able to supervise our students and do things that have just, not been done before. We will get to, what we've done to address that shortage, but before I shift to that, I'll also speak to, what we've done to be able to improve the substitute pool that we have. We've continued to have that position posted throughout the year where candidates can apply. And we seamlessly, bring them in once they meet the threshold of requirements. To put it in perspective for you, at the end of last school year, we had about 114 individuals who were signed up to be a substitute. So since then, we've scrubbed that list, verified those individuals who would like to remain on the list, and now we're at 72 individuals. But all 72 of those individuals don't want to work every day. They don't want to work at every school. And so that also limits our potential and how we're able to utilize that substitute staff. And I do want to thank Ms. Sherry Apey personally, because I know she has done a lot of work with that crew or with that group of employees to make sure that they're ready to go in the classroom. So, as far as what we have done to address these challenges of being able to maintain our talent, starting before the beginning of this school year, we increased the pay wages for our substitute employees. And we also adjusted the base grades on the unified pay plan to account for the anticipated increases to the minimum wage. In addition to that, you so graciously approved us to begin a study with Evergreen Solutions so that they could take a look at our compensation for those that are on the unified pay plan and also our bus drivers. So in regards to bus drivers, we have not had any significant changes to their pay scales, we said since 2018. Right. So, it's very timely that we're able to have Evergreen to take a look into the pay rates for our bus drivers to hopefully enhance their compensation. So as far as what we have done for the substitute staff, we did recently implement a few weeks ago some supplemental pay for employees that have to stand in and fill in the gap in those instances where there is not a substitute available. So paraprofessionals can earn as much as $15 an hour for each hour that they are standing in the gap. For a teacher, we also have a different pay structure set up for teachers at the high school who have to do similar things where they can earn $25 an hour. So 25 hours of block, excuse me, see, that's why she's here. So, it's not limited to just teachers and paraprofessionals. Those are the people that are most commonly impacted in those situations. But we have already seen for the month of September that, we've had, many individuals, and in some instances, we've had school secretaries that have had to step into a classroom and provide support to our students. So, these are definitely unprecedented times, and as after Christy did all of the groundwork and looking at what was done across the region and surrounding school divisions, there seemed to be an option that seemed to be comparable, and also an incentive to staff to continue to do the work that is just so much needed and demanded. Did you have anything to add? Okay. I also wanted to mention that, as far as, what we considered or thought about when we were looking at incentives, aside from the staff that are in the school, we looked at, what could we do for those that are in school nutrition and those that are on our buses, helping to transport our students to and from school. Many of you already realize that school nutrition really never had a break. Since the beginning of the pandemic, they worked throughout the summer. They continued to work throughout the school year. And then we had summer school and, trying to help our children get back to a sense of normalcy. Many of our cafeteria staff chipped in and they worked throughout that whole summer to be able to provide nutritious meals to our schools, students, and staff. So we have that going on. And then in addition to that, we have the driver shortage that is going on all across many schools in the state of Virginia. Here within this school division, and Mr. Tucker, you may correct me if I'm wrong, but I know for transportation, beginning last year, the Virginia retirement system named the driver position as a critical shortage position, which allows us to be able to hire a driver after they meet certain requirements of being a retired employee. So he recently submitted that report on our behalf to the DOE. At that point in time last year, we had 9 people that had applied that, met the requirements. And that just goes to show you that the pool of people that are coming in and desiring to do this type of work is swiftly dwindling, every year. Fast forwarding to today, we're in the midst of a challenging crisis in which we have 12 vacancies in the bus driver position, and that does not include bus drivers who have, as Dr. Weston says, a lot of life going on. And from our conversation the other day, it was, I think at least about 5 or so individuals that had their own health issues or that had family members they were taking care of and providing support to, children that they were helping raise, that also impacted their ability to be able to come to work and be, fully present in the role. So this is how we land in the state of the predicament that we're in today. And so what we wanted to do is to try to provide a staff incentive that would be able to support our most vulnerable group. Go ahead.
Good afternoon. As Mrs. Branch has indicated, we certainly have seen challenges this year with the hiring of transportation and school nutrition employees. Anyone watching the news has seen that school divisions in our region, in the state, across the nation are facing when it comes to transporting students to school, to and from school, and every day and on time. And one of the things that the on time has caused is, for our students to be at our schools later or either arriving later. So one of the things we did implement, in addition to paying teachers and paras or staff for covering classes, is for late bus coverage. So we will be paying teachers $15, or not teachers, employees $15 an hour to stay with students in the afternoons until all the buses can get there to pick up the students to deliver them home as well. Many of the regional school divisions have tried increasing salaries for bus drivers and or bonuses to attract and retain these employees. I did complete a cost analysis of raising our starting full-time hourly rate to $20.21 to match what Chesterfield did just recently. But the cost for Dinwiddie County Public Schools was going to be $325,000. And that's not a one-time cost, because once you increase those salaries, that is an ongoing cost and you have to be able to sustain it. And of course, this was not a viable choice for us at this time. As Mrs. Branch mentioned, the pay scales for school nutrition and transportation drivers and aides has not been adjusted since 2018 when we implemented the unified pay plan, which is after we went through our last salary comparison. In regards to that, our teacher scale starting salary has increased $4,000 annually since then. So not to say that these employees haven't received raises, they have received percentage raises, but the scale itself is not keeping up with the market. Therefore, it's causing, us to maybe not be able to attract and retain more employees than we really would like to. Mm-hmm. Both of these groups of employees, of course, are included in our compensation study. So in order to address some of the needs that Dinwiddie County Public Schools has experienced so far this year, we are proposing an incentive for these two groups. While this incentive is tied to attendance, it will enable the employee to earn additional pay if they meet the criteria. And the incentive will be funded using our CARES Award funding. So the potential for transportation could be $180,000 annual for this year, and school nutrition would be $106,750. But let me just say that's if every single employee qualified or met the requirements for the entire incentive. So that's the most that we would, pay out. So how this would work is all drivers, aides, and nutrition staff who returned for the 2021-22 school year will receive an additional $250 paid November the 15th. We have seen that many of our drivers, decided not to come back this year. It's the same with school nutrition, and we're just really trying to, reward those that that have done so. All drivers, aides, and nutrition staff who have perfect attendance for the month of September of 2021 will receive an additional $250 paid November the 15th. So, September has come and gone. So people, employees at that time didn't know that they were really in a situation where attendance was going to be awarded at this time. However, we encourage our employees to come to work every day. But we do know that life does get in the way. We did have, out of our transportation employees, there were 31, so about half. And the same with school nutrition. It was about half of that group as well that did have perfect attendance in September. So they, of course, would receive that. And then what we did is we broke down the rest of the school year into periods of time that we thought would work well in order for people to receive these incentives. So, of course, one of them we wanted to tie around the December holiday. October and November, there were, I believe there's 39 days. So we're tying this to a 94% attendance rate, which for that would be 2 days, the maximum number of days that you could miss to receive this incentive, which would be paid on December the 17th. And then the next grouping would be the months of December, January, and February, which held 52 days, and March, April, May, and June, which held 71 days. Now, these are not inclusive of each other, so you could get one, you could get the first one and not make the second one, but get the third one. So, you do get like a chance to start over. In addition, at the end of the year, we're going to look at this annually. And if you have perfect attendance for the entire year, a full-time employee could earn an additional $1,000. 2 days, maximum days the entire year, an additional $750, and no more than 5, an additional $500. And you see the part-time amounts listed there as well. And if you recall in previous years when we have done perfect attendance awards, our transportation and school nutrition employees are the employees that received a lot of these. I mean, they really typically do a really good job of making it every single day. But we do know that these are challenging times, and this is an opportunity to be able to provide some type of incentive to these groups. And we hope that we'll be able to see a difference and that it will make a difference. We'll be glad to take any questions at this time. Ms. Branch, was there anything that you thought we needed to add to that?
Yeah, I think we captured everything. I may have focused more on transportation, but I did just want to note that school nutrition has experienced as much of the same challenges that the bus drivers have as far as us, being able to stabilize the staff. And a part of that was due to us being able to provide free lunch to all of our students. This was the first school year in which we were open to be able to serve all of the students. So last school year, we really didn't have a true picture of what that did to the staff or what demands that put on the staff by us offering free lunch to everyone. But we did quickly find out within a few days of this school year that the staffing structure that we had in place was not enough to be able to accommodate the increased demand of the students that we had. We had a lot of students that were coming through the lines that had not done so previously. And so as a result of that, Mr. Athey also had to pivot and increase his staffing in those areas to be able to accommodate the staff. We truly just have a lot of individuals that are going through, some hardships in those two departments, and staffing seems to be one of the greatest concerns for both of them. So we hope that this incentive, would be well received for them. Do any of you have any questions about what's been presented?
I have a question back on the teacher turnover. It was listed in 2021, 42 left. Overall, do we have an idea of all the ones that are leaving, what percentage are retiring or just flat out leaving education, or are they
Yes.
leaving to go to another county or city?
So I can tell you, I'll have to dig deeper to, we have the information, but to be able to report it, I have to do a little bit more work to have it in a format that you can be able to easily understand. But I can tell you that many of the individuals resigned versus retiring. Looking at the grand scheme of things, I would say maybe about 10% of the exits were due to retirement, and then the larger portion was due to a resignation. Now, yes, we did have some individuals that chose to go to other school divisions. And I was talking to Jessica Epps, who helped me to put together a lot of these things today, of just, looking at it overall. It's really a mixed bag between individuals who have left the profession or individuals who are seeking teaching opportunities closer to home. And, that has always been a challenge for Dinwiddie. And was brought up in our last advanced leadership that we do such a good job of developing the teachers and helping them get that provisional in the first 3 years. And then, by year 5, they've gone off on their merry way somewhere else. So it's a challenge.
I will also speak to the teacher shortage that I know when I got my teaching degree, about 25% of everybody who went to college to be teachers. And now they're saying that's less than 5%. So less than 5% of people going to college are going to college to teach. And so we are going to be faced with a huge shortage in the very near future of qualified people to do what, we need them to do in classrooms. We're going to need to be very innovative about what are we going to do about that, knowing
Yes.
that that's the direction we're moving. Yeah.
Well, I have another question about, these incentives are for bus drivers and for cafeteria workers. And if they have perfect attendance, do we have people that we have asked to quarantine because they were exposed here versus exposed at church or at the mall? And how would we handle that as far as if we're telling them they can't come? How does that relate to?
That
the
is a
absence of-
question that we discussed. And, we also included Mr. Athey and Mr. Tucker in on that discussion to make sure it wasn't an isolated decision. Ultimately, we concluded that an absence is equal to 1 contracted day. And regardless of the reason of the absence, that would impact how the incentive is paid. So to address your question in regards to if we've had any quarantines, we did. At the beginning of the school year, we had some quarantines that were not related to exposures in DCPS, in which I know we've had under 5 individuals between the 2 departments that had to go out either because COVID-related symptoms or they, in fact, tested positive.
I think that's the beauty of this too, is that it starts over, right? So
Mhm.
if I miss it this month, there's an opportunity for me the next month, you know,
That's
so, or the next cycle.
Yes.
Thank you.
We had 31 employees in September in transportation and school nutrition that had perfect attendance.
Yeah, 16 in school nutrition and 31 in
Oh, 31
transportation.
transportation, okay. So it's even more than that.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Wonderful.
I'm happy to see that you want to compensate them. We're trying to compensate them in some way. And as you said, they do a lot of work. They're committed, and they're the least paid, and that's not just Dinwiddie. So I am glad to see that we're trying to do something, and hopefully as time go on, we'll be able to do even better.
Right. And, I just hope that everyone understands that, we are trying to do things that incentivize all employee groups to come to work. But, as I said previously, these two departments do seem to have some of the most vulnerable employees in those areas. So, and we feel that, this is where this incentive would be most useful and helpful. Because if you look at the hourly rate between the two positions, their starting pay is between $12 to $14 an hour. And, many of these individuals are part-time, which means that they may work an average of 4 hours if they're part-time. And if they're full-time, they're only working 6 hours a day. So for someone that is in the classroom or, like me working in the central office, we would still have at least 2 hours on top of what they make on a daily basis, that we could add to our annual salary. So there are some, significant comparisons that attributed to the decision.
And I also, Ms. Benjamin, wanted to say something about perfect attendance, that I don't have an expectation about perfect attendance. I think there's a lot of life just in general going on for people. These past couple of years have been really tough. And there are days, the work is tough, and so there are days when I want people, if they're not feeling their very, very, very best self and they need a moment to reset, I want them to reset, right? Because you're dealing with young people, you're dealing with our community, and so we all need those moments. And I want them to feel okay to do that. Now, do I want them to be missing one day a week? No, but certainly I think this says, please take those moments when you need those moments. We recognize that you're going to need time, but also it recognizes, thank you for coming to work and doing the work that you do every single day.
I think this is fantastic. I think it'll give them an incentive, and if they've missed 2 days and they know, if I can make it through this week,
Still good.
I'm gonna get the 250. So, but I also think it's important that when we give this to them, some sort of reminder that, hey, we can do this because this is COVID money. And,
Yes.
That's where it is. It's
and
like-
we may or may not be able to do it in the future. Hopefully we can, but
Yes, our goal was to try and, combat a challenge that we're having.
Right.
While helping the employee as well, because, that's why we did allow for absences, because, life does get in the way, and people have things that they have to take care of, so.
And it seemed like every other news story was another school division offering $4,000.
Yes.
And we said, okay,
Well,
enough.
Yeah, and one thing I'd like to add about that is many of those what they refer to as bonuses, that the news and the media has been reporting for these other divisions are tied to incentives and staff attendance or safety and that type of things. And they're paid throughout the year. I mean, when you hear those, you immediately think that they're going to write you a check for $4,000 the day you show up for work, and that many of them are paid throughout the school year.
Yeah.
And I think it was 2 of them. You have to show up for work next year to get the
You gotta
last
sign your
payment.
contract for next year.
So they're creative ways, but they sound really good on the media, and when the media reports them. But so what we're doing is really, it's in line with what some of the other divisions are doing as well.
Okay. We need a motion.
Yes,
so-
please.
Okay, Madam Chair, I move that we approve the staff incentives that were presented to us today.
second.
It's been moved and second that we accept the staff incentives as presented. All of those in favor, use the usual sign aye. Aye. Hearing no opposes, the staff incentives are approved, and thank you very much.
Thank you both.
Thank
Thank
you.
you very
Thank
much.
you all.
New business.
No new
Is there any
business.
no new business? Superintendent matters?
Yes, I'd like to invite to come to present to us this evening, Angel Young-Gill, who's one of our just partners with us in so many things and helps to take care of the young people in our community. And she's going to provide you with an overview of the youth provision needs assessment from 2020. It seems like such a long time ago.
It does. It's good to see some
Good
faces
to
other
see
than
your
myself
face.
and a
I
few
know.
people.
It's good to see you.
Oh. Well, thank you all for allowing me to come and present to you all. And good afternoon. I think you're heading towards the evening now, so good evening. But I want to also say thank you to the school board members as well as to our board of supervisors, which I said to them before at their meeting, for allowing my department as well as the schools to partner again with the community needs assessment. And Marie Grant also helped us write this as well, and we had a lot of community involvement, and so we're very appreciative of having us be able to complete this. So this is the 2020 Youth Prevention Needs Assessment, and we usually also call it a Community Needs Assessment because every 5 years there is a needs assessment that's required for three core agencies, and that's the Children's Services Act, which is my program, juvenile justice, as well as social services. And that's a mandate that all those agencies actually have to do some type of a needs assessment to just assess the services that are needed for the kids in the community. So that's done every 5 years. As you know, COVID kind of did a twist on everyone, just hearing the conversation. And so with COVID, that kind of delayed a little bit of our rollout, to say the least, with this needs assessment. But I will just give you a brief little summary of some highlights and different parts of the needs assessment. As you see, it's kind of extensive, and we compared it to the one that was done in 2015, but as well as the data that we got as far as the youth risk behavior survey. And so we actually had the youth risk behavior survey that was done as part of the United States Center for Disease Control. It's a free document that you can get off of the CDC website, and so we used that in 2015, and so we used it again in 2020. And it's no cost for us to use that. It's the simplest standardized youth survey that we could use for our kids that would give us a very good update on the needs and strengths of the community. And so what it does is it really just looks at the social indicators, and we just collect the data and we compare that. We also have done some key informant interviews as part of that data collection, and really gathered a lot of input from the community to actually accomplish it. And so we actually had a total of 1,526 students that actually participated in the survey, and of that, 456 were middle school students and 980 were high school students. And the rollout with the age kind of a little bit younger than age 12, and not too much older than age 18, as you know. So that's the middle school, high school age there. So that's kind of what we looked at for the group that we surveyed. So I will say, just in highlights here, Dinwiddie County youth appeared to be consistent with peers nationally when surveyed in certain areas. Now, I will say that Dinwiddie County also stands out more so with just reporting that they carry weapons at a slightly lower rate than most of the national peers. And the reason for that is most likely, as what we've gathered from the input, is that Dinwiddie County kids use weapons for recreational purposes, for hunting and target shooting. And a lot of that, of course, is through supervision of parents and guardians. And so that's why that was kind of mentioned there as far as our country and our county. Some of the highlights that we also looked at with this was alcohol, tobacco, drugs, and weapons. And if you see that in the other section in the beginning, it just kind of goes over the other highlights. Also, feelings of hopelessness and suicide, tobacco, alcohol, marijuana, cocaine, other drugs, sexual activity, body image, as well as diet, nutrition, and physical activity. And so we just wanted to touch briefly on some of those areas. So what stood out to us with the alcohol, tobacco, and other drug use was that the levels that we have here in Dinwiddie are consistent but slightly different in some peers connected nationally, meaning that regardless of the drug type, Dinwiddie youth first experienced using these type of drugs at the age of 13 to 16 as a sample. And so that's definitely a very important point there. So if we can catch them right at that age period before that, then we can educate them as far as prevention at elementary school level as well as high school level and carrying that onward, not just at the schools, but also in the home and in the community. Another highlight that was there is that the rate of suicide among middle school and high school students nationally was concerning. And I say as far as alarming, at 17% of the high school students and 23% of the middle school students in Dinwiddie County reported seriously considering to attempt suicide. So those, and of course, this has increased because of the pandemic. You know, everyone's at home and on social media if they have electronics, but at the same time, they were distanced socially by this lovely pandemic, and that didn't help. So we just want people to be mindful, parents and professionals, just to be super sensitive and aware and alert of the mental health needs of the kids in the community. I know I'm not telling anyone that they don't know, and you're seeing a lot in every area, really. So that was just something that we felt like we needed to point out. And if you know that Dinwiddie does have a suicide prevention partnership with District 19, and we can talk a little bit more about that a little bit later, but it's definitely something to look out for. So the survey and the focus groups that were done were also needed as part of that. And what always keeps coming back from the 2015 version and the 2020 version is that, you know, kids are just not getting physically active. And so we need to encourage them to somehow get physically active. They need to increase that physical activity. And I know, again, COVID probably had something to do with that. But at the same time, this is the same thing that we said in 2015. And as the survey showed, it says that there was no physical activity for at least 60 minutes a day for 7 days prior to the survey being taken. So that shows us that it hasn't changed since 2015. We need to get them out there moving a lot more than what they are doing now. Part of that will also comes to the diet and nutrition. And we know that diet and nutrition is definitely very important at home and at school. The schools have done a great job of working through the healthy alternatives at school, and we're just encouraging kids to also have healthier choices at home and in the community. So that's just something that we feel like we need to also outline as something that's needed. A common need that was identified was also as part of the focus groups was that kids are always asking for something to do with their free time. They feel like there's just not enough in the community that's kind of given to them that they can do that was free. And so we're trying to look at some options that we have there. But we also want to encourage positive structured activities outside of the school, contributing to factors that would prevent them from having risky behaviors in the community. So anything we can throw at them, get them engaged in that's positive is what we highlight. Now, we'll want to point out that some of the things that schools, your schools, Dinwiddie County Schools, actually already has, and they offered several different programs across the grade levels. And some of them are like the students organized for developing attitudes, which is SOTA. And so they actually encourage people to make good decisions and goal settings when interacting with people. The sixth graders, they've been using the Teens Against Tobacco as far as educating kids on dangers of tobacco use. And I think the United States overall has been really pushing more involvement and oversight of tobacco use, as we know. Now, vaping is a whole nother thing, but that was also part of the survey, and some of that was part of the question, so that's inclusive in that. Now, life skills training is something that has been highlighted in 7th and 8th grade, and that's been just reminding the kids to make good decisions and good choices in the community and in the schools. And at the high school level, SAD, the Students Against Drunk Driving, has been very involved still. a voluntary program, but it's open to all students who are willing to participate in that and to work through that, and that's been successful. And then bullying, there are committees available or contact point people in all the different schools from kindergarten through 12 to make sure that kids have someone they can go report to. That was set up years ago, and from what I'm understanding, that's still occurring. Now, the Another Chance program feels like it's a little bit of a baby that I kind of worked with to help create. Seems like so long ago, but it's been several years ago, and it's still such a great program. I know that the schools have taken over the funding part, I think, for that, but we have always maintained that partnership with the District 19 Community Service Board, and Diana Barnes is usually the one that conducts that. She's also on our community policy and management team. And what that kind of came from is just trying to look at improving the dropout rate, as well as the on-time graduation rate, and also kids that might do something that's behavioral in the school system. And so they have an alternative of working through this program, whether it's alcohol, drugs, weapons, or other just minor infractions that the school board, when they present to you all, are willing to refer them to the Another Chance program. And if they successfully complete those parent and child components, they can actually go back to school after the first session and with good behavior still being maintained, stay in the school and do good things. And we've had some good success from that. And that's been a program that's evolved over the years as well. The other ones that we have here are the recreational activities. And Parks and Recreation and Tourism has always been there. Of course, there's a cost factor with a lot of those programs that are offered under Parks and Recreation, but they're year-round. We know COVID hit that a little bit as well, so they had to get a little creative on how to actually interact with kids in the community and parents. But they actually have done well in getting back in engagement with soccer, football, and other activities that we know that all kids love sports and activities. But there are other activities that they have been implementing as well. And I will say that if, a family is in need, they just need to reach out to Parks and Rec, and sometimes they can kind of help work situations out with them. And so 4-H is also another great program. I know Dinwiddie's 4-H program has always been very, very much favored by all the localities, and a lot of people are very interested in that. I'm told that I actually had a very good summer program, socially distanced, not as many kids that were there, but it was a successful 4-H program because last year they didn't have it because of COVID. And so that was something that they look forward to continuing. So as far as substance use and violence, the schools have been putting out education with that, working with kids and families to continue to improve upon that. And we know that part of this is just to engage the parents as well as any guardians that are involved, connected with the kids. And so that's where we're trying to push that message through the community. And definitely talk to kids about topics that are very controversial right now so that they hear that education and get it through the home community and not just the school. So flipping through the needs assessment, there's more about the methodology and the approach that's in there that can talk to you a little bit about what I just gave you a brief overview on. And I will say that we did offer parents who were not willing to have their kids participate in the survey to actually opt out of it. And we had no parents that opted out, so we were very happy with that. They would have just had to do a written letter back to us and we would have notified the school. And so some of the other documents I'll just highlight here. We updated our census based on the data we had from 2010 to 2019. And the youth risk survey was done in 2019, completed towards the end of 2020. So we were just gathering the data together for you all to have. And then juvenile justice usually gives us in their resource guide all the different percentages of crimes and offenses. And so it goes to 2009 as well as 2014. And then the most current one is 2020. And I thought that would be helpful for you all to see where the percentages have changed over time, back and forth with that. And that's a requirement that's part of their evaluation plan every year as part of juvenile justice and the Children's Services Program for us to actually look at. I want to note that on a positive note, teen pregnancy seems to be very low in Dinwiddie County. and I know everybody's probably happy about that. We're under Crater District Health, the health district, and I will say that the teen pregnancy rate for Dinwiddie is definitely very low. We did that a little bit before age 15, up until age 19, and that's the group that we highlighted. Last time when we did the needs assessment, we actually had included some of the data for Chesterfield and Colonial Heights, but because Chesterfield and Colonial Heights is not technically under our Crater district, we just pulled them out completely and just made it under our whole District 19 planning area. And we felt like that actually looked better and could show you the comparison on the counties versus some of the cities. And so, of course, it's higher in the cities because of the population being higher, but if you do the percentage in that, you realize it's probably somewhat equivalent in different ways. And so, some of the other analysis that we did were through focus groups. And so we've had quite a few focus groups that actually were willing to work with us to give us some input on what they felt were barriers and concerns, as well as what they felt would be potential causes that contributed to some of what we talked about with the risky behavior. So some of our teams and groups that were surveyed were our community policy and management team. And the community policy and management team and our family assessment and planning team are both two teams that are under the Children's Services Act as far as working together. And those are made up of all the core agencies like mental health, social services, juvenile justice, schools, a parent representative, our mental health person. And so there's the case manager level, and then there's the supervisor and director level. And so they were able to provide input on that. And our youth advisory board, they primarily work with our Virginia Juvenile Community Crime Control Act program kids, and that's under our first-time offender and diversion program that's under juvenile justice, which we're working through some kinks in that. but we are actually encouraging them to actually revisit us with maybe some prevention services that we're looking at trying to create as part of that new program and that new rollout. So we hope that we'll have some success with that. The other part is our public schools, which is you all, and then those are the ones that we gathered the information from, and the health district, which is, we have one nurse now, but we had two. And our private providers that work with us as well. So excuse me, the focus groups developed the barriers of concern, and some of those, as you can see highlighted on page 13, they talk about the mental health issues that are incorporated in the social emotional issues as a highlight. A lot that always came out about, and it continues to come out about, a lack of parenting or caretaker roles for kids, a lack of involvement by the parents, and engagement, supervision, that's always been a question. The push that we heard a lot this time was the generational lack of supervision or parenting concerns, because we know that a lot of people are living together now or moved in together, so that's kind of pulled more dynamics into the household. And the key there, transportation or lack thereof. Because we're in such a rural locality and limited transportation with just BABs or people now using Ubers and Lyfts, it's still very taxing for people if they can't afford to get around with transportation. And of course, that leads to poverty and a limited employment, as well as other questionable barriers and concerns that you can see that's highlighted there. So some of the potential causes that contribute to the barriers are just a lack of understanding of some of the social dynamics and development of mental health concerns. I think we see that a lot now in the schools because there are people who just don't quite understand COVID. They don't quite understand different things that's going on in the community and in the world. And there's also some talk right there of the racial disparities as part of that. And that's been another theme that we've been talking about that was highlighted, as well as the financial instability, unemployment, lack of jobs, again, increased by COVID in a lot of different ways. So those causes could probably go on, as we know, just because of the times that we're living in right now. So they've just extended it out. Opioid use, as we know, was a big piece with that study that went through in the community, and that still continues to be a problem. Substance abuse and drugs and alcohol and transportation. So those are some of the things that contribute to that. So if you go back to, or you look at page 15 and onward, those are that was some of the input from some of the focus groups, and I thought they were quite good. And so we just wanted to put them in sections that we felt would fit each category as closest to it as we can. And so it talks about the education, as you see, the workforce development initiatives, and it also came up with some plans there and some suggestions, and then also some activities as you go down. And so that really highlighted a lot of what we heard in the community and some of the programs that we felt could be enhanced or would be able to be created as part of that program and that criteria. And so we're hoping that people will use that when they look at creating new programs and services in the community. So now I'm gonna flip to page 25 because I kind of summed up that whole middle section for you. And page 25 really is the recommendations that came from this. And I will just highlight a couple of them, but they were all great recommendations that came from this. I will say some have already started. So if you look at number 7, with the expansion of broadband, you know, the county's been working hard on getting the broadband going. It definitely will be very key when it comes to the virtual learning platform. If we ever have to go all the way back to that, hopefully we won't, but we'll see how COVID goes. And I really love the idea of number 6, where there's some collaboration on a mobile unit that's equipped and staffed to address the mental health and healthcare needs of the community, not income driven. They can kind of drive out there, and as they had before COVID in some of the more rural areas where they had like mobile trucks and such that would park, and they would have a doctor and other people there that could provide the service and give it to them on site. And that's something that would be great in a rural community like this, that we could do that. The other ones that I would highlight is on page 26, and that would be just continuing to advocate and to actually provide education on number 9, which would be on the sexual activity, the teen pregnancy, you know, just prevention services to make sure that our youth are aware of what they're doing and can be educated on other options. And then number 10 would be prevention efforts towards alcohol, tobacco, drugs in the school and in the community. As we know, that always comes to a head whenever someone has a challenge with that. And then one of the main things I think that people are using more so now is number 11, where everyone's kind of, if you're out and about, sometimes you're waiting or you're just in the areas, you see kids on their phone or the parent's cell phone or they're on an electronic device. They're not really talking too much anymore. They're really just into social media or anything that's available to them. And then when they get home, or if they're not even home, they're on a computer, a laptop, or something else electronic. So really just, you know, getting away from the technological devices for a little bit. And that will help them with their sleep patterns and to do better there. And then when you get more sleep, you think better, you're clearer, hopefully you're well rested, and you can do better with that. So just stepping away and unplugging is what we pretty much say would be great with a lot of kids and adults in this world. So.
Angela, I noticed one of the things when you were flipping through there was it said that 13% of Dimity High School students said that they got less than 4 hours of sleep.
Yeah.
That is shocking.
Yep. So unplugging. And if you think it's the kids, sometimes the parents are even worse with the amount of sleep. If you think about how your mind kind of goes and you can't get to sleep even though you might be laying down, and then people tend to pick up a phone and that just keeps them up even longer just looking through it. So definitely want to encourage more sleep and less technology. So that's my presentation. I'm open to any questions that you might have. Or
Any
comments?
questions?
Or comments?
It was a very, very interesting report, and when I looked through it, I liked the comparison. And I was glad to see that you compared it to something, and that was very interesting. And I'm glad you had a pretty good number of students to participate in
We
it.
did.
So that way you could get a little more more accurate report, because you had some students to work with.
Yes, it does make it valid.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Angela, if the kids answer these in a good number, like she said. If we ever, any agency ever had the opportunity of 40% of middle school kids said they've used marijuana, And if we asked the parents, do 40% of the parents think their kids have used marijuana?
Well, this survey was done mainly for the kids.
Yeah.
And so all that data came based on the information we got.
Themselves.
Yeah,
Yeah.
from the kids.
I wonder if there was a realistic comparison in them answering the questions versus what the parents.
Well, the kids did it at school.
Right.
So anything that they answered, they did on their own.
Right.
Yeah, they did it I think during the Gen Block
Mm-hmm.
during 2019 session. And so I heard they had a lot of questions and had waved their hands a lot, but they were able to kind of focus back and answer the questions themselves without the parent input. So I think that was very helpful and insightful.
I will say that those numbers are definitely something that keeps me up at night, you know, especially when I look at the high percentages of students who think about suicide and, and who are already engaging in, you know, things at age 13. I mean, age 13, we should just be like, you know, just enjoying being 13. So there's a lot of opportunities for our work here, but it does worry me, you know, about the things that they're worried about or the things that they're having to deal with. And I will tell you, we have a lot of kids dealing with a lot of life, you know, and so unfortunately, sometimes that's the route they take in order to deal with it. And so there is a lot of opportunities for us to lean into this. I'm going to bring this report to the principal's workshop this month so we can talk a little bit more about, you know, what our work can look like in support of this. But some of the recommendations you had in here are things that we've already done as far as adding personnel and the like, because we knew based on COVID that we were needed, but we just didn't know how much, you know.
Yeah. When you see the percentages and you compare that to the national data, it's definitely very disturbing in some ways. It's been insightful in others. And I will say in some parts, there wasn't even a national data available that we could pull from to compare it. So we had to be real specific on what we were actually looking at and not give you something that's not going to be useful, but something that would be.
And our voices of our young people are so important, and we have to find ways to so that we can listen to them and to be able to support them and help them to navigate this, you know, being a teenager.
Yeah. I think it's been very helpful when they've had teen ambassadors and such at the Teen Expo, and so it's good to hear that that's coming back.
Yes,
and so
I'm excited
I think this would be a good time to probably use
to explore some of this. And one of the things I will tell you, the survey that we do here, one of the things that the young people had wrote on there is that they just would like something to be done as a result of, I'm giving my voice to this and I'm telling you this, I want you to do something with it. Like, don't just take all this information and then we never see anything happen differently. So,
unfortunately, a lot of them want it immediately, and they don't realize that it's a process and that you have to be a little bit patient with that.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I hear you. That's good.
So, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. You all have a good evening.
You too. Thank you for your patience and waiting for your turn. I'm going to have Ms. Powell come and give us an update as to where we are relative to the health and safety plan. And if you want to, Ms. Powell, you could just do your homeschooling report while you're there, and that way you don't have to sit back down and stand back up quickly.
Okay, we continue to update the COVID dashboard and are constantly monitoring that data. We are going by the guidelines from CDC and VDH as far as quarantining and positive cases. We have been able to order some COVID tests that we will be able to send home with staff or parents. Hopefully they will be in. They should have been in last week. We're hoping for this week. But that was through the state. We are happy to say that we have been able to hire 4 substitute nurses because our current nurses feel like, you know, they can't even take a day off because, you know, they are needed in their position. So I'm ecstatic about that. We hired a full-time nurse for Sunnyside. Thank you. Ms. Branch and her department for that. And we are still working on hiring a full-time floater nurse that would be able to, you know, float between the schools to help out when, you know, they need to do some contact tracing or if a nurse had to be out. We would love to increase our substitute nurse pool, so if anyone knows anyone, please send them our way. Approximately 2% of our staff and students have tested positive. since school started, and that is out of everyone, students, staff, teachers, all employees. Many of those have been from exposures outside of school, but we still keep up with all of that data and keep it on the COVID dashboard. So, any questions? Okay.
Are we seeing a downward trend yet, or?
Yes, we are, and I think Mondays are our biggest days. You can see from the COVID dashboard because they didn't report Saturday, they didn't report Sunday, so Monday seems to be the biggest day. So I see a downward trend, so hopefully that continues.
Well,
All right.
that's good news.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
Yes, ma'am. Okay, as far as, you want to go ahead with homeschool?
Yeah.
All right. So homeschool, as you can see maybe, has increased over the last few years. Right now, we are looking at 203. If we go to the very bottom, 183 have been approved. We still have 10 who we are waiting on different documentation from those parents. And then we have 10 that have certified tutor. So that's where the 203 comes from. We are still receiving applications for that. As far as today, we've received 2. We've already talked to a school, and we know that we have at least 1 more coming tomorrow. So we are seeing, if you can look back at the previous years down at the bottom, you can see that it has gone up. So that has increased. We also track religious exempt students, and as of right now, the total for that is 54, and that has gone up over the years as well. Not as much of a difference, but it has gone up some. Okay. Any questions regarding homeschool or religious exemption?
I will just say about the homeschooling, I mean, you can see it was pretty stable up until it got to the time when we, the schools closed. However, I think that, there is an opportunity with the homeschool parents. I mean, I do believe that parents should have options. I just would like the option to be public education, but I'm realistic enough to understand that, everybody knows what their children need. One of the things with Mr. Moss's position we've been talking about are some opportunities that we might be able to partner with our homeschool families and provide some type of virtual support, so that, because one of the things that we've heard from our homeschool parents is they still would like to access, things like sports and clubs and activities and band and all of the things that sometimes can be very difficult to find, those kinds of, so if there's a way for us to, they do the academic piece or we help with the sport, the academic piece, but then they also can help to participate. I mean, we want to provide that for them. So I do think in the very near future, meeting with parents of homeschooled students and seeing if there's a way for us to partner moving forward as we're doing our planning for what virtual learning will look like, and if there's an opportunity, something in there that they might be interested in as well. Then I also noticed that some of them, they have listed the support of like a certified tutor or a certified
That's right.
teacher. So there could be something in there for us, to partner with them in this effort and to continue to support them, in their choice.
Anything else?
They're still our kids.
That's right.
That's how I look
Absolutely.
at it. They're still our children.
And they have access to many of the
Yeah,
other schools as well, as
Yeah.
far as Appomattox or
absolutely.
Maggie Walker. So,
Mhm. Yeah.
thank you.
Thank you.
All right, and Ms. Fleming, we're getting close to the end, the enrollment.
Yes, good evening once again. When I came before you last month, our student count at that point in time was 4,095. And I'm pleased to say that we have increased that today to 4,130 students. So our budget is built on 4,150. So we're 20 below budget, but that's certainly better than, you know, where we were at the last time. And we believe that we can certainly cover any shortages as far as state revenue goes with vacancies and turnover. So at least we're not as concerned about that as we were last year. Last month this time. There's still 30 no-shows that we're tracking down and working on to find out what has happened to those 30 students. So we will hope that as we progress throughout the year, this enrollment holds steady at the very least and increases at the very best. Yeah. Anyone have any questions about
That's great news.
that? Yes.
I like that number better.
Yes, me too. Yes, okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, Ms. Nguyen is going to come and provide us with an overview of our graduation rate that was just recently released.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Okay, as you may be aware, the Virginia Department of Education recently released information relating to the school quality profile. And the school quality profile is comprised of a number of data points, information that we submit through various data collections throughout the year at different points in time, like the fall, the spring, the end of the year, and the summer. One of the data points that we're going to focus on this evening is the graduation rate. By definition, the Virginia on-time graduation rate expresses the percentage of students in a cohort who earned a Board of Education approved diploma within 4 years of entering high school for the first time. We also refer to it as the OGR. Percentages are based on longitudinal student level data and account for student mobility and retention and promotion patterns. 317. There were a total of 317 students included in the class of 2021 cohort. The class of 2021 by the numbers. If we look at some of the subgroups that are displayed, we had 167 females, 150 males. We also included some of the other subgroups that we typically focus on, like our Black students, there were 103, Hispanic 30, white 165, students with disabilities 43, economically disadvantaged 149. And out of those students in the cohort, you see that 155 females graduated, 138 males, 98 Black students, 29 Hispanic students, 149 white students, 38 students with disabilities, and 131 economically disadvantaged. Which now we can see the on-time graduation rate relative to each of those subgroups. On-time graduation rate over time for all of our students. If we look back at 2018, 2019, we were at 85.8. 2019, 2020, we were at 90.9. And 2020, 2021, we were at 92.4. Yay!
That's awesome.
So as you see, we have been steadily increasing and improving upon our rate. On-time graduation rate over time for students with disabilities. We also see an increase from 74.2 to 90.7, and then just a little slight drop to 88.4. But when we look at it compared to the state, we are only a couple of percentages lower than what the state was at 90.7. On-time graduation rate over time for our economically disadvantaged, 79.4 to 89, increase and a little slight decrease to 87.9. Our diplomas by the numbers, which this data point is included in that calculation for our on-time graduation rate. All students, we had 120 advanced diplomas. Standard, 162, other, 11, GEDs, 3. And then you can see the breakdown for our other subgroups for females, male, Black students, Hispanic, white students, students with disabilities, and our economically disadvantaged. So yay, circling back around to the GLOW is 92.4%, our on-time graduation rate, which if you recall from Dr. Weston's earlier presentation in our strategic plan, goal 1 is student success. This is one of our measures for that. And I would say we're doing pretty darn good.
Here we are.
Any questions?
Beautiful
Yeah,
information.
it is. I will say that I think one of the things we learned, well, first of all, we do really good with the 5-year. The kid, we allow them to stay with us. But one of the things we figured out was we were kind of focusing a lot on that 11th and 12th grade year instead of like getting back into the middle school, because it really starts. You start to know who's going to drop out in middle school. So that's really where the data you've got to pay attention to, those A's, B's, and C's, the attendance, the behavior, and the course performance. When you see those 3 things in the middle school, you can automatically tell who you've got to make sure there's a solid plan in place to support the 9th grade. And I think over time, if you go back even further, 5 years, 10 years, you'll see where that's been increasing every year because we've been really front-loading success of kids. Now, the work to get here has been hard, but the work to get further is harder because now you're talking about just small groups of, you talk about like these no-show. I mean, it's like narrowing it down,
Right.
and getting, because I noticed when I read the full reports, a lot about EL, so we need to work on that, and so and that advanced diploma too is another thing I really want us to pay attention to because I think we do a really good job with standard diploma, but I'd like to see more of the advanced diplomas, especially students with disabilities and the like. So lots of opportunities for our work there, but this is certainly something to celebrate, and it certainly is the work that the schools are doing both at the middle and the high school and at the elementary because you talk about reading levels and all of that starts way back when.
Right, building that
And
foundation.
it's only going to get better with time. We won't be chasing it at the high school level. We're front loading it now, so that's great.
Thank
Really
you.
testament of everybody. All right, now Mr. Tucker, we have Mr. Tucker here to provide us with an overview about where we are with transportation. The good news is Mr. Tucker came back to work today. That's always a positive. It's good to see you tonight, Mr. Tucker.
Yep.
I'm sure you drove today. Did you drive today?
Yes, ma'am. That's why I was late getting
I
here.
figured as much, so thank you. I asked Mr. Tucker just to kind of give us an overview about where, you've heard some of the staffing, I think, so I just asked him to talk briefly about where we are with some things. We met with the drivers on Friday and just to talk to us about where we are and what we're doing leading forward.
As Dr. Weston said, we did meet with the drivers on Friday. We listened to some of their concerns. In the meantime, we also voiced, I guess, some of ours, and I think we also informed Dr. Weston of exactly what's going on. Mm-hmm. I will say that this is the first year that I have, how do I want to put it? Normally started the day knowing that all of the students will not be at school on time. Mm-hmm. And it's not a good feeling to have. And we are also running some of the, not being able to get all students to school on time. We also has put us in a position with the lack of personnel of getting students home. Some of them, as late as I have ever had to do it. If we go back to 2020, I guess, and as of today, we do find ourselves, depending on how you count it, either 11 or 12 positions down. When school, and as of right now, we have one person on family medical leave, 2 on just long-term medical leave, along with the 2 to 3 daily call-ins that we, have when people realize that when something goes up or when there is an appointment or there is doctor's appointment or whatever. When school opened, we were lucky and we had a driver for each route that we had. But we had no one in reserve. And I was not so naive as to believe that, we could make it through the year that way. But I didn't know that, it was going to hit us quite as hard as it has. In the line of substitutes, I only had myself and I think most of you know Kathy, who also works in the office. So in order to get, when a lot of times when people are out, sometimes to get elementary kids home, we have to wait for a high school driver to finish a route. Sometimes we wait for an elementary driver to finish a route and then come back. As just like today, this afternoon, I said I drove, but in reality, I drove 3 routes before I got here. Okay. So, and that's the kind of thing that we're going through. Right now, we do have we just finished a class last week. We had 5 people in the class, all indicated that they were in the class for bus drivers, and whole classes we have for drivers and aides. And I do have 2 more that I think are very promising, applications who were not in the class, but these people already have credentials. It's just a matter of getting some things squared away with them. You heard you heard them earlier talking about Christy. They were talking about the incentives that other people have. I just hope that I'm not training these 5 to go somewhere else to people who have those, $2,000, $3,000, $4,000 incentives. I guess time will tell. So I guess to put it in a nutshell, when we set up routes this year, routes became longer. Our software always tell us to, if some of you would see the numbers that we have on buses just in normal times, you would think that we're crazy, but our software tell us to load buses that way because of the percentage that are going to probably ride anyhow. But we loaded them a little bit more. And, so what has happened is it's some of our drivers are, our kids, let's put it that way, they're on buses now, probably longer than they are used to. And some are really pushing it to get to school on time. This is our, second weekend in releasing the secondary schools a half hour earlier. That has helped us some because we are trying to make sure that we do keep buses as clean as we can keep them. And we're not talking about paper and dirt off the floor, but keep them disinfected, spraying them down, disinfecting them between runs and so forth. And it was very difficult with a lot of the length of some of these routes, of the routes, with the amount of time that we had between high school and, I should say secondary and the primary schools. So that half hour has helped us. As far as the app goes, or as far as the tablets go, I think, I'll be first. I was a little hesitant about the tablets myself, but I have been using it this year. And I do know, or I do believe, I should say, that just from a driver's perspective, they can be very helpful. Some of our drivers are still, sometimes they, when one doesn't work or if there's a problem with one, some of them can become a little bit disenchanted, for a while. But then they I know the other day Kathy was explaining to a driver how to load another route because she had the driver subbing a route. The driver had the manifest with her, but Kathy said, look, just put this number in and then do this and do that. Well, while she was doing that, 2 other drivers heard her and they decided to try it also. And what it does, it can give you, you can populate that route and it will give you instructions. Now, it's going to give you the instructions that we have in the software, that the software has provided for us. It's not going to, it's just not going to give you GPS routes GPS directions from here to Richmond. But if that route were in that software, it will give you that, but you have to put in that particular route number. So I believe that there's going to be some good use there. I think we trained on those tablets and the app. We trained 2 years ago. We didn't use it last year with COVID and with the way we're running things. So it's been probably almost 2 years, maybe 2.5 years since we have used it. And I do think that we probably need to go back and do some refresher training just to kind of bring people back up to speed as to where we are. And some of the drivers, or one of the drivers, and she talked around and talked it up, and she has suggested a transportation advisory board made up of drivers and I don't know who else. And they're supposed to be meeting the first meeting sometime this month, and hopefully some good things will come from that. You heard the talk about salaries for bus drivers and cafeteria workers and various people. Well, sometimes, I've worked with drivers and as a driver and also as a teacher and as a teacher and driver combination. And sometimes, drivers don't feel that they are getting their fair share, let's put it that way. So, I tell them all the time that I really believe Dr. Weston is on their side. She's in their corner. And just to, be a little patient. Don't be afraid to go to her. Don't feel that you're, hurting me. If I tell you to go to her, then feel free to go to her and ask her and then we'll work it out. Do you have any questions or any comments?
Well, I just appreciate with all that you're going through, that you're still pushing. And if it's anything that I can do to help you in the office.
I thought you had a couple of drivers someday.
But I just want to let you know that I appreciate what you and your staff are doing. And I don't know all that you're going through, and I'm sure there are many of us who don't know that everything that you're going through. But what I do know is you all are trying to get our students to school so they can be taught. And while I'm talking, I just might as well say kudos to the administrative staff for doing everything they can to make instruction take place while you're getting them there.
Okay. Anyone else?
Mr. Tucker, I thank you for what you're doing. I see the buses, early in the morning, late in the afternoon. That's when Mr. Tucker had another day that didn't go so well. But I know you're trying. And
Every day's a good day.
And I appreciate it. And please let the drivers know that we're on their side. We're doing our best and we're working as soon as we can. Just don't give up on us.
Well, every day's a good day on the side of the earth.
Yeah, but sometimes it be a little challenge.
Yes,
Mr.
exactly.
Tucker, one of the things that I think people need to understand is that the signal issue and the bus drives down the road and its signal drops because of
Oh, yes.
and it has to reload.
Well, and I'll give you a perfect example. I went out this morning and I loaded the 2 routes that I was doing, loaded them in the tablet. They both worked flawless. Got on the bus this afternoon. Before I left the garage, I tried to just log in. The tablet I was using, same tablet, I couldn't log in. I said, well, maybe I get a better signal at the middle school. Went to the middle school, tried it 2 or 3 times, couldn't log in. Went to the high school, wouldn't log in. It finally logged in, finally allowed me to log in when I started back down Route 1 after I dropped the first group off. So, it's
Frustrating.
well, and yesterday I thought it would be a problem because it was rainy and foggy and because of the weather. And in that building that we're in, I mean, all bets are always off. So, if we get phone calls on our cell phones in that building, when we answer it, if we want to talk to the person, we'll walk toward the door.
I always
If-
accuse
if-
Mr. Tucker of being selective when he sees my
If we look and see who it's from, we just sit at the desk and try to talk.
You should not have said that.
I like to tease him about that. I wanted to know that when we met with the drivers on Friday, just to hear them, and to talk about really the situation we were in and just say, we need your help.
But,
I mean,
they
they're
have been
good
great, though.
people.
They've been good.
They've been great, and they just said, how can we help? What can we do? And, and honestly, they were more upset about things that people were saying about them on Facebook and as if they didn't care about kids. And I told them, I said, don't pay attention to that. They're talking about me, not you. I mean, and I can take that. So they just really care about kids, and they just want to be able to help in any way that they can, and just love these children. And they called them my kids, and so I just was very appreciative to have that time with them. And today you'll appreciate this, Mr. Tucker received a phone call from because now we're getting complaints that the buses are getting there too soon in the afternoon. So I just want to put that out there. So we have to work. Now we got to find the happy medium, I guess.
Well,
But that was a good problem to have,
all right.
right?
Thank you,
Mr.
Thank you.
Tucker, so much. Appreciate it.
Yeah, my report.
That's you.
Yes. Good evening. I attended the Appomattox Regional School Board of Trustees meeting in September. We didn't have a quorum, but we were able to get a few things done, and a few things were said that's going on that's good at the school. We did have one young lady. Well, I don't know if most of you know we have a new director over there, Miss Tania, Megan Tania, who is the new director at the Appomattox Regional Governor's School. Dominique Tania Booker participated in the Strong Women and Men competition that was sponsored by Dominion Electric. She was a winner, and because she was a winner, $1,000 was donated to the school. VSU is partnering with ARCS in their dance festival. And we do have good news. There have only been 3 positive cases of COVID. We test every twice a week for the students in Petersburg to see if they are positive or whatnot. So that has worked very well at the school. We will not be meeting on Thursday. This meeting will move on into November, which will be a meeting on Veterans Day at ARCS. And that ends my report. Ms. Haney?
No, Mrs.
Rwanda.
Rwanda. Who's going to do it?
That's me.
Ms. Pittman?
I attended the Rwanda meeting last week, and we are pushing forward, trying to determine new programming or additional programming or expanding programming. It is a lengthy process. Lots of research has to go into not only the job market, but also a survey for local interest. And if the job market says we need plumbers, but if there are not enough kids either in Prince George, Dinwiddie, or Sussex who want the plumbing, then you still have to match up who wants what with what we can offer. We're hoping to look for another health field, maybe HVAC or plumbing, to add to the offerings that we already have down there. But of course, like I said, it's a lengthy process. You have to apply to the state, you have to find your data, and you have to be able to prove that those courses are needed. But other than that, the number of students that are there is good. Dinwiddie has percentages are up as who's attending. And last year, even in the middle of the COVID activity, we had a good percentage of students passing their certifications for their various areas. So that's good news as well. Thank you.
Now,
Okay.
Mrs. Haney.
Yes. I attended the board meeting for Maggie Walker Governor's School for International Studies on September 22nd of this year. This school actually is ranked 5th best public high school in America. And this is the first year that we've ever had one of our students attend the Maggie Walker.
No.
So, no, it's not.
For years we had them, and then we
For ye-
rolled back when we got to Oryx Open. I'm sorry, it's just
Oh,
back
okay.
in the day. I just
Back in the day, the first time in a while that we've had a student there. They presently have 756 students and 208 are freshmen. And they come from 14 different school districts, so there's a large board just like on the other boards there. They're going to start recruiting and having informational nights for all the middle schools within the next couple of months or two. So they'll be coming to our school, our middle school, to try to recruit more children. They're working on a new assessment program for their candidates. And this is kind of being pushed by the state also. So anyway, as soon as I get more information, I'll bring you updates on what they're doing.
You ready for citizens? Any question for Ms. Haney? Okay, citizens comment. We have, I'm starting at the bottom, Kiana Menwana. Is that Kiana Menwara? Rachel Duck. Does Bonnie read?
Hello.
how you doing today?
Bonnie, do you have?
Doing well, thank you.
Oh, she's got the timer.
Okay, okay.
I'll keep it short and sweet. I want to thank the school board members and apparently the FBI for your time and attention this evening. My name is Rachel Dutch, and I have 3 children in secondary schools this year. I have a new middle schooler, a new high schooler, and a senior this year. I pray that my words don't fall on deaf ears and that you hear me for what I'm hoping that you understand what I'm trying to say. Today marks day 26 of the school year, and as of today, 2 of my children have collectively missed 13 days of school due to COVID exposure quarantine. Not COVID, just the exposure of COVID. Already half of the school year has been missed by my kids. Now, I would love to have a COVID party like they had back in the 80s with the chicken pox, right? You get it, you're immune, you're done. At least for 90 days. My entire family's already had COVID. The problem is that it was prior to 90 days ago. And so natural immunity is supposedly non-existent now. So why are they getting behind, you ask? Well, I'm sorry, I missed I wrote it down so I stayed on track. So my children are forced to sit at home and get behind on their schoolwork yet again, because our COVID virus was prior to 90 days ago. So why are they getting behind, you ask? Well, we don't have any internet at our house, which someone addressed earlier. I know that's not your fault. Of course it's not your fault. My FIs, however, can't be given out until it's been 2 weeks since the kid's been out. So we're gonna let them get behind for 2 weeks before we're letting them make up their work. In fact, my senior just had to drop one of his AP classes because he got so far behind, he couldn't catch up. His teacher recommended he drop the class. So why are we quarantining due to exposure? If the social distancing is working, then why the masks? If the masks work, then why the quarantines? You're having an issue with teachers not being able to come for the exact same reason, when only 2% have tested positive. How many kids are not testing positive who are sitting at home getting behind on their schoolwork? Our children are being punished for catching a cold. And I don't say this lightly. I say this because the test that tests for COVID, it also tests for the cold and the flu, according to the CDC's website. And I have that information here for anyone who would like to look at it. Have we ever quarantined children for catching a cold or the flu? Because we are right now. We're muzzling our kids every day. We're muzzling our kids every day. I mentioned I have a new middle schooler and a new high schooler, right? They see friends at the grocery store. They don't recognize them because they've never seen them without a face mask on their face. They don't even know what these kids look like. The conversations are not the same without facial expressions. These feelings that everyone is so intent on protecting are hard to read with the face covered. That is how we express emotions, how we can read other people. That's how you know that I'm not real happy right now. How many children have already come to school this year with something profoundly wrong going on at home that their teachers couldn't read on their faces because they were covered? You know what happens. There are kids dealing with all kinds of stuff. You said it yourself, Dr. Weston. Why are we going to such great lengths to bow down to a political agenda that is doing irreparable damage to our children and our communities? I realize you are doing what you think is best, following the CDC guidelines. I realize that. But those are not based on science, no matter how many times they want to tell you they are. Multiple studies, one by the CDC, in fact, and again, I have that if you'd like to look at it, and many by independent companies, have been done on children masking in schools and the effects of COVID in the communities as a result. They are inconclusive as to whether masks help or not with the spread of COVID. However, the independent studies do mention the effect that wearing masks have on the children. So why do we continue to torture our kids? Why? They can't breathe. They can't hear each other. They can't read facial expressions. They don't even know what their friends look like. They can't recognize them in public. I know your job is to protect our kids, and I thank you for that. I do. But they're not being protected by being forced to quarantine because they happen to have a class with someone who was exposed or who tested positive for COVID, or maybe it was the cold or the flu. We're still not sure. Our children are not being protected by being muzzled. They are the least affected by this virus. Their death and hospital rates are so low, it is hardly measurable. According to the CDC's website, and I have paperwork, over 5 million kids aged 18 and under have tested positive for COVID-19. 5 million kids. A total of 587 children have died due to COVID-19. It's tragic. Yes, it is very tragic. But that is a 0.001% rate of kids that die from COVID who get it. These statistics from the CDC website are for January 4th, 2020, all the way through October 2nd of 2021, which was just a couple weeks ago. If the flu still existed, you would see that the death rate for the flu in 2018 and 19 was 477 deaths for kids 18 and under. It's not much different, is it? We didn't have mask mandates or quarantines then. I'm asking the school board to consider breaking from the political agenda and the CDC recommendations of masking our children and quarantining for exposure to COVID in schools. This is causing irreparable damage to our children, both socially and academically. You heard today about the suicide consideration rate. Why? Why is anyone even considering that? Thank you for your time and attention.
Thank you. Next, we have the family at 19909C Whisper Street. I don't want to butcher your name. Will you pronounce your name for me, please?
Yes, it's Samolsa.
Samasa. I would have butchered it.
Not a problem.
Thank you.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Thank you all for taking the time this evening to listen to my comments. I especially want to thank Dr. Weston, who I had an opportunity to speak with in depth last week, and she enthusiastically listened to my concerns and seemed to be solution oriented. So I'd like to share a few of those comments with the board this evening. I'm Jason Samolsik. My son is a kindergartner at Southside Elementary. So he's my first child, and we're 1 month into the school year, and I've made some observations. We've had a rough start dealing with transportation, and I understand the concerns and the issues that Mr. Tucker's had to deal with. He's probably never had to deal with these types of issues in his career as a transportation director. I learned recently that when a child shows up for school because the bus was late, they're marked present. I understand if a parent decides to take their child to school and drop them off after the tardy bell, they're tardy. But if that's the way we're looking at attendance, we're missing the point. If that child's on the bus or in a car, the fact of the matter is he is absent, or he or she is absent from that classroom, is not getting that education. Whether or not it's a solution that can be solved easily, I can tell you it is not. But I can also tell you that with our children missing education, we're not doing our job as their guardians, their parents, or the community at large. I would ask the parents can help with this solution by allowing schools to accept delivery or drop off of their students earlier in the morning and later in the evening. Because the fact of the matter is the majority of your parents are workers and they have a place to be. And they cannot be just waiting for the bus to show up and be late to work, not just every once in a while, but habitually, daily, day after day. Furthermore, the other day, obviously, some of you may have heard the story. My child was left on the bus, potentially. But the point of the matter is the driver admitted he did not know he was on the bus. That kind of comment is absurd and unacceptable. I would ask that we take a hard look at what we can control, which is protocol, procedures. Furthermore, a bus application has been provided to parents, which for the majority of us is still not working this far into the school year. I've been told by Dr. Weston part of the issue, and I heard Mr. Tucker talk about it earlier, is the coverage. In that case, I would suggest to the school board that you all are stakeholders with the Board of Supervisors to strongly pursue grants from the state to expand coverage for technology in the community. I'd also ask that we allow the community to get more involved. I'd like to see some working groups, perhaps a discussion board online where parents can make comments regarding the issues at large. That also being said, there needs to be some open dialogue, the issues that the school is trying to solve, so that we can all work together as a community to find resolutions to those issues. I can tell you, for example, in regards to transportation, that I do not see that issue getting resolved this year or next. Unfortunately, the cost of living is rising faster than the wages that we can pay our workers. Therefore, we need to come together cohesively to find a resolution which works for everybody. Earlier, I heard comments regarding incentives, and I came up with a thought that perhaps you also could consider. If we're trying to retain people in the community, then perhaps we should look at retention bonuses at the 10 and 20-year mark for those that specifically stay within the county. Because I can tell you that people work towards goals. We are a goal-oriented society, and that could potentially be something that would people want to stay. When I say that, though, it needs to be a significant retention bonus, right? It needs to be something worth working towards. Pending your questions, that concludes my comments this evening. Thank you.
Thank you. I think that ends our comments. Board member comments.
I gave my comments, but I don't know what the answer is, but I do respect the parents who showed up tonight to express your concerns, and they won't go on deaf ears. I don't know what the answer is, but I respect the fact that you showed up, and I wish all parents would do the same thing. Thank you.
I would like to compliment everyone who worked on the graduation rate. It started with teachers and assistant principals, guidance counselors, people at the school board office, taking 2 or 3 kids to stay after them, call them, help them, tutor them, breaking down those numbers of kids who were in danger of not graduating last year. And obviously that approach works to break down the big problem down into little small bites. And so kudos to those who helped. And also, transportation is struggling, the meals program is struggling, and as well as in other areas, not just in Dinwiddie, but that doesn't matter. We have to do exactly what Mr. Simlick said, that figure out how we can help each other and how we can improve each piece and make it better. And I have confidence that we'll do that.
Ms. Haney?
Well, just like everyone else, I want the parents to know we do care very much for your children, and we're so sorry that things happened. And this has been a rough year, like they said, for transportation. And it's not just our school system, it's all school systems are having trouble getting bus drivers. We're getting, substitutes. It's hard. We're working a day at a time trying to figure out exactly what we have to do too, to try to help the kids as much as possible. And I know nothing, it doesn't help right now, but we are going to take care of as many problems as we can. And we appreciate y'all coming out and talking to us.
First off, I'd like to applaud the staff, the students, parents for enduring this first month of school as we get back to normal. Thank everybody for that. Parents, I appreciate y'all coming out most definitely. I wish more parents would come out to every meeting. Wish we had a line for waiting on us. I would love to see that. And I feel your pain, definitely, and concerns. Unfortunately, as some of y'all know, some of it's out of our control. Higher voices are spoken that I do not agree with. I'll be honest, I do not agree with. So I wish we could do more, and hopefully in the future we can. And as far as staffing, times are tough. Trying everything we can to get more people here to help. Put the word out, please. We all need help. Any bit will help. So just want to thank y'all and thank everyone else. And kudos on the graduation rate. That was awesome to see that.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely.
Thank you, parents, for coming out. It's always good, as I'm not going to pronounce his name wrong, but as he said that when we work together, you bring an idea, you bring an idea, and somehow or another we all get together and we come out with a working decision, something that's going to help all of us. And I do thank you for coming. Thank you for entrusting your children to us, because you give us a job and we love working with children, and we hope this will not last, that we can make a lasting difference, a happy difference in your family and in their family and the families of Dinwiddie County. We do thank you again for coming, and always thank the staff, administrators, and all who work to make it as good as it is, because we have received some awards for trying to do our best for the students of Dinwiddie County. Again, we thank you. And now we have our students. I don't know which one is going first.
Next week is homecoming week, and we are so excited because one football team's undefeated, and everyone in the school is so excited about that. It's so nice because it's finally a sense of normal. We're having Spirit Week next week, and like everyone's coming together again after everything that's been going on. And it is so nice to just see so many people like passionate about our football game because it's like one of the big community events, and it's just awesome to see that it's coming back. This Saturday is homecoming dance, and there's a lot of kids who sparked interest in that they even expanded the number of kids that can go to it because so many kids want to do it because we've missed out on so much. So that's awesome to see. And I'm glad to see that y'all are starting to figure out the transportation issues because I know it's been getting down on like a lot of kids, but they understand that it takes a lot, and I mean it's all over the news, but we're glad to see that too.
Claire and I have finally received our mailbox because we're trying to do a voice box at the high school, and we're very excited about that because student voice is very important. We hear opinions from everyone, regardless of what they believe. Anything that will help improve the school will improve students individually. So we're very excited about that, as well as the youth prevention needs assessment that was presented to us today. We feel like that can help us a lot in the programs that we do as a student advisory board within our high school and the whole school system. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Dr. Wesson?
Yes. I would like to start by saying that this is a school district where the voices of parents and of young people matter. And so what happens in our schools, and I appreciate you coming. I haven't had the opportunity to sit down with you and talk. I would love to hear more about what has been transpiring. And I hate that this had to be the form in which you had to come to raise that. But now that I know, we can do something different. So we're going to figure this out, and you have my word on that. But this is a school district where parents' voice does matter about what we're doing in our schools, and certainly our young people. And I'm really excited about the mailbox. I thought it was pretty cool looking. I'm just really excited about it. I can't wait till we get it all set up. The first thing we're going to tackle is the dress code, which I can't wait to tackle that and see what good we can do there. As the girls tell me that our dress code was written for other generations. So I can't wait to see what a 4-page letter I got about how the dress code is for generations before me, so for them. And I also want to say thank you to the principals because I think that other than teachers, which we all know what the job that they're doing in our bus drivers and the like, but the work that you all are doing every single day on the front lines just to take care of everybody and in your care, and you do it so effortlessly, and I just appreciate your leadership and I appreciate your just tireless quest to make sure that every child is successful and every child is successful, every adult is successful, and I just appreciate you so much, and I don't think you get to hear it enough either. And so I just want to make sure that we do say thank you to our principals this evening and take a moment just to appreciate them as well. It's not easy to be a principal right now. I was telling somebody it was a lot easier when I was a principal because there was no social media, and there was, it's just, and we didn't have anything with COVID and all that kind of stuff. So you guys had a tough job, and I just appreciate you all so much.
All right, is that it?
That's it.
Right.
Yes, that's enough.
All right, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Madam Chair, I move that we adjourn the meeting.
I second it.
Moved and seconded, we adjourn. All those